Hi, my name is Jen Loki. It is May 4th, 2023, and we are going to talk about gender determination and how hormones and genes fit into that and impact that. All right. So here we are, sex determination, genes versus hormones, fun pictures, etc. All right, what are genes? I'm noticing that this might be cutting off some of my slide, hopefully not too much. All right, so genes are particular sequences in our DNA, and they code for a characteristic that when put all together make up us, unique individuals. Genes can code for one trait, or multiple genes can code for one trait. Genes are basically sections of our chromosomes. And then we have to, of course, ask, what are chromosomes? We're going to get to that in just a second. But we have chromosomes that are tightly wound pieces of DNA with some proteins in there. And we have 46 total chromosomes in each of our cells except for our sex cells. And we'll get to that in a second. 23 of the 46 are from mom, 23 are from dad. 44 are autosomes, which are non-sex chromosomes, and 2 of them are sex chromosomes. And you get one of the 2 from mom and 1 from dad. And then this little aside just talks about if when things go awry and you have more chromosomes than 46 or fewer, that's when you get things like Down syndrome or various other syndromes that can range from mild to severe. All right, let's go. All right, so sex chromosomes, this is a picture of 46 chromosomes in a normal cell. So again, one of everyone's sex chromosomes, one of our 2 is from dad, and males possess an X and a Y. So dad possesses an X and a Y. So about half of his sperm are going to be able to offer an X chromosome, and half are going to be able to offer a Y. Females possess 2 X's. So no matter what, you're going to get X number 1 from mom, or you're going to get X number 2 from mom. So offspring are either going to become XX if they get an X from each parent, or X from mom and Y from dad. They'll be male XY. All right. So what are the chances? Humans are control freaks. They really like to think that they can sort of design their child and pick the gender. And I'm sure this is probably in the future. It kind of freaks me out. There are people who they try to centrifuge semen, and it's said that because the X chromosome is weightier, the X's will fall to the bottom and the Y's will stay on top. And so if then you draw the sample from the bottom, you're going to get a girl, etc. I have friends who had 5 boys and they wanted a girl. So they did this procedure for $10,000. And guess what? They still got a boy. Their 6th child was a boy. All right. So that's how the chromosomes and the genes portion works. Now, hormones then impact what happens next. Okay, so after your chromosomes are figured out and a zygote has been made, so the sperm fertilizes the egg, the sex chromosomes are either a combination of XX or XY, barring something going awry. And whether or not your external and internal sex characteristics match the chromosomes is due to hormones. Okay, so the beginning starts with the presence or absence of the SRY. The SRY is the sex determination region of the Y chromosome. So obviously, if you have a Y chromosome, then you have an SRY. If you do not, then you do not have an SRY. So embryos, or zygotes, I guess, embryos, when they have when they have a Y, they have this SRY, and that means the production of a protein called the testes determining factor, or TDF. And the TDF activates other proteins that then signal this bipotential, meaning could be male, could be female, hasn't been figured out yet, almost like stem cell-esque. It determines, this bipotential gonadal medulla, so this portion of the what will be the gonads that are male or female, will morph into testes, will change into testes. So this pathway in blue here is that. If you are XY, then you have an SRY, which produces a TDF, which produces eventually testes. If you do not have a Y chromosome, which means that you're genetically female, XX, you do not have an SRY, so there is no TDF, so you don't produce testes, and instead the bipotential portion of what will become the gonads morphs into ovarian tissue rather than testes. The male pathway, so if you do have the SRY and the TDF and then testes, once these testes are produced, the testes then are made up of interstitial cells and Sertoli cells, two different kinds of cell. The interstitial cell produces testosterone and dihydrotestosterone, similar, but do sort of different things. But these things, especially the DHT, cause the Wolffian ducts to become external male genitalia. The Sertoli cells, that sort of help the production of sperm, they produce an anti-Mullerian hormone, and the Mullerian ducts are what would become female genitalia. If we have this Y chromosome and all of these things for male genitalia, then the Sertoli cells produce an anti-Mullerian hormone, so the Mullerian ducts degenerate. So bye-bye female pathway. Speaking of female pathway, so a lack of testes, so you have ovarian tissue instead, means lack of testosterone. And without testosterone, the Wolferian duct degenerates. And the lack of DHT causes ovarian tissue to cause Mullerian ducts to become female genitalia and structures. Not really external genitalia as much as females have that, and but also internal as well. Okay, gametogenesis is also highly regulated by hormones. And in both genders, which I find interesting, you still have similar things going on. The production of gametes, so oocytes and spermatocytes, oocytes being the egg in the female and spermatocytes being the sperm in the male, are regulated by this series of tropic hormones. So kisspeptin, which is super interestingly named, I want to know the story behind that one, in the hypothalamus is said to sort of trigger gonadotropin releasing hormone to be secreted in the hypothalamus. This then tells the anterior pituitary to start producing follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. And again, this is in both females and males. FSH and LH then stimulate the gonads, whether they are ovaries or testes, to secrete steroid sex hormones, which are mostly androgens in the male and mostly estrogens in the female, though they both produce both, which is interesting. And I have a phone call coming in, so I'm going to decline that. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now, I did not make this fabulous chart. I was trying to figure out how to make it with the arrows showing negative feedback loops and positive feedback loops and all of that. But this picture already existed, so I'm just using it and we'll talk about it. Okay, so you can see up here the kisspeptin causing the gonadotropin releasing hormone right here to then cause luteinizing and follicle stimulating hormones to be secreted from the anterior pituitary right here. Then the luteinizing hormone goes into the gonads, so whether it's the ovaries or the testes, we don't know, either way, and causes endocrine cells to secrete steroid and peptide hormones, the steroid hormones being, if it's female, estrogens mostly, and male testosterone mostly. Then the follicle stimulating hormone helps with gamete production directly. The cool thing here is that the luteinizing and the follicle stimulating hormone cause these steroid hormones to be produced. And when they are, they travel back up to both the hypothalamus and to the anterior pituitary and have negative feedback loops. For the most part, it's controlled with negative feedback loops, which makes sense because when you have a lot of something, you don't need as much, and so the production goes down a little bit. The exception with that is really weird is estrogen, which kind of flips at certain level, at high levels of estrogen, flips to a positive feedback loop. So that is interesting. Luteinizing hormone also directly influences gametogenesis in females, whereas in males, it's just follicle stimulating hormone. So females, it's both LH and FSH, whereas males, it is just FSH. And I think that is it. I have a study thing. I don't remember if I'm supposed to talk about it, so I'm just gonna real quick. So if you watch the slideshow presentation when I was a teacher, this was always very helpful to have like structured notes that kind of happen in order of the presentation so that they know what to write and know what the important things are. So what is a gene? How is a gene different from a chromosome? Chromosome numbers. So here you fill in the numbers of various chromosomes, 23 from mom, 23 from dad, 2 autosomes total, 1 from dad, 1 from mom, etc. What are hormones? What does SRY stand for? Is it a hormone? No, it is not. It is a region on the Y chromosome. Discuss the importance of the presence and absence of this and what it starts. What does bipotential mean? So like stem cell-esque in that it hasn't differentiated between male and female yet. Name the factor that produces proteins, blah, 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 TDF. Circle the eventual type of genitalia that following duct system will lead to if allowed to develop. So the Mullerian is the female, the Wolferian is the male. List the 2 types of cells produced by the testes and the major function of each. We talked about that. List the results of the presence and absence of testosterone and dihydrotestosterone. List the hormones produced in the following particular glands that lead to production of gametes. So this is what we just talked about. The hypothalamus, anterior pituitary, and then the gonads, and then the fact that there's mostly negative feedback loops. Oh, and then my last question is give one example of a negative feedback loop that influences hormone levels in the process of gamete production. So hormones have a lot to do with it, and genes and chromosomes that they are on also have a lot to do with it, with determining gender upon birth. The end.